Howdy, howdy, happy Sunday. This week we're going over chapters 12 and 13. I hope you guys are having a great Sunday. Let's just jump right into this. So chapters 12 and 13 activities, you'll have your normal polling activity, reading quiz, watching your video, reflection activities. The video I'm referring to is in chapter 12, and you'll complete 4 video activities regarding that video. And then in chapter 13, you'll have a video activity, case study, and some exercises to do. Make sure you're staying on task with all of your assignments. Now that I've opened them all up, I just want to make sure and extended the due dates. I just want to make sure that you guys are staying on task each week, okay? So this week we're really getting into developing goals with our clients or patients. So up to this point, we've created a rapport. We have assessed our client for needs, and now we are tasked with developing goals with our clients. We always want to be client-centered, and remembering that we are not developing these goals, they are, and we are there to assist them. And we assist them by using techniques that we've already learned, motivational interviewing, asking open-ended questions, using prompting and summarization skills and clarification skills to assist our clients in coming to a place where they have ideas for goals for themselves. So when you're thinking about creating goals for your client, I always think of a road trip. For instance, you have your point of origin, and that's where you're starting with your client, and then you have a destination of what's your client's big picture goal. So for instance, in working with people in recovery, they are, their point of origin is, I used fentanyl yesterday or this morning. And their destination is, I don't want to use fentanyl anymore. Well, it's not just that simple. There are mile markers along the way, which I would consider the goals, and the idea of assessing for progress during those mile markers along the way. So we set goals with our clients for purposes of recovery. We're thinking about what is hindering them to achieving the goal of not using an illicit substance. And most of the time with the population I work with, it's issues of mental health, it's issues of self-sufficiency, getting their physical health needs met, stuff like that we examine to help them to get to a destination of not needing to utilize substances. So when we create goals with our clients, we want to make sure that they are SMART goals. We want them to be specific. They need to be direct and meaningful. We want them to be measurable. We need to be able to track progress. Attainable. We want to make sure these goals are realistic for our patients. Otherwise, we're setting them up for failure. We want them to be relevant, that the goal aligns with the client need, but also with the mission of the agency that you're working for. And time-based. We want to give time frames in our goal development. So when our clients say, I would like to have a job, the goal isn't client will obtain employment. The goal may be something more of client will explore employment opportunities over the next 2 weeks, or client will develop a resume with the assistance of a case manager by, I don't know, July 30th. So just make sure there's a time frame in there, and it gives your patient something to really work towards, and gives them a deadline, right? So when you're working with your clients, you'll experience voluntary clients and involuntary clients. The involuntary clients can become kind of an issue. They may be hesitant to cooperate with the process. They lack trust in the system. They are there because they're being told they have to be there. Aren't we more likely to complete a goal in our lives if it's our idea to complete that goal versus someone telling me to make sure I complete this goal? So just keeping that in mind, we want to utilize motivational congruence, which is just as you see here. We want to make sure that the agency goals and the client goals or needs align with one another, and they overlap. They're in the middle to create meaningful goals with our clients. So factors influencing goal development, you've got status again, and recognizing are these clients involuntary or voluntary. Acknowledging their values and beliefs. An example would be here in Western society, we value autonomy, and we believe that when we sit down with a social worker, perhaps, that we can develop our own goals, and that's valued here in the United States, that idea of autonomy. It's not always that way. We all know that. In other cultures, there are different values and beliefs. So just acknowledging that in your assessment phase with your patient, and then acknowledging it as you develop goals. Resources and support. We always want to acknowledge, let me think of an example. Okay, so somebody is struggling with employment. And so, like I said, we create a goal. I think I mentioned this in the last slide. We create a goal maybe that the client will research employment opportunities over the next couple weeks. Are we also considering that they have the means to do so? Do they have a computer? Do they have access to a computer through a library? If we're recommending that they utilize a library as a resource, then do they have the means for transportation of getting to the library? I mean, these are all things you need to consider when setting goals, again, so that we make sure they're attainable. Environmental conditions, what I think of when I think of this is where I'm from. I'm from Owen County, and it's a super rural area. So if you're working with someone from a rural area, just acknowledging that they may not have access to services in that area as they would if they lived up here in northern Kentucky, where there are services all over the place to access. So just, keep these things in mind, again, when developing goals with your patients. Negative and positive goal statements. We want to steer clear of the negative goal statements. So maybe instead of saying patient will abstain from use of illegal substances over the next 90 days, we reframe it and we say patient will increase periods of sobriety each week over the next 90 days. And in doing that, we highlight the patient's strengths, and that they, and it's a positive approach, right? Instead of focusing on the deficit, what can your patient do? What actions can be taken? It's more action-oriented. Cycle of change, I just wanted to put this in the PowerPoint. It's always important to acknowledge what stage of change your patient is in when you're developing goals with your patient. Most of the people that I meet with are in a contemplation phase. I would think that they are aware that there's a problem, but are they really ready to commit to taking action to combat this issue? Well, as a social worker, we work with our clients, and we assist our clients in hopefully getting to a place of preparation where they do have an intention of working towards a goal or a destination after acknowledging that there is a problem. So just give this a look over. Keep these things in mind when you're working with your populations. It can be a difference of failure and success, and you'll assess this throughout your entire time of working with a patient too. They may be in an action phase and doing really well, and the next thing we know, they're in relapse here, falling back into old patterns of behavior, which leads to then pre-contemplation, and you're starting over, right? So just always assessing for what stage of change that our population is in. So chapter 13 really focuses on change strategies, and I gotta kind of run through these pretty quickly to keep this under 15 minutes here for you. But we've got different approaches and strategies to utilize when we're working with people as they have developed goals in our interventions. So the task center model focuses on problems identified by the client. It's brief and it's time limited, and it really encompasses the idea that a client can or is capable of solving their own problems. There's crisis intervention, and then in that model, what we're really doing is focusing on reducing the intensity of a client's emotional, mental, physical, and behavioral reactions to a crisis situation. We're getting them back to a place of functioning. This is also referred to in your book as the equilibrium model, so it's kind of used interchangeably throughout the material, throughout the reading, and it's very action-oriented. There's cognitive restructuring, and this idea is derived from cognitive behavioral therapy, if you've heard of that. Basically, the point of cognitive behavioral therapy as an intervention is to change a client's mindset to then increase the likelihood of changed behaviors. So if we can modify their beliefs or maybe faulty thought patterns, then that maybe could create a change in behavior that's productive or productive to success for them. The solution-focused brief treatment model, it's time limited, it's brief, helping the client shift from problem-oriented perspective to a solution-focused perspective. This model works really well with juveniles. As you'll see in the reading, it really talks a lot about the impact of the use of this model with a juvenile or an adolescent population. Then you've got your case management model, targeted case management, and that's just kind of the idea of keeping in mind that we understand that a patient may not have the ability to be successful when their when their basic needs are not being met. So we work in the case management model to connect clients with resources to help them to ensure that their needs are met. Okay, and then I wanted to kind of go back to the crisis intervention, the cognitive restructuring model. I meant to mention this. That's where you'll read about in your book about cognitive distortions, which is really interesting. There are tons of different types of cognitive distortions. An example would be like the comparison cognitive distortion, like maybe thinking you're at the gym and you're thinking, wow, everybody in this gym is so much more fit than me, and that's going to inhibit your ability to really focus on yourself and your own progress. So just give those cognitive distortions a look over in the book in chapter 13, and then at the end of chapter 13 it talks about trauma-informed care approach, and this is just like it says right here, person-centered, strength-based service delivery approach recognizes prevalence of trauma among clients. Trauma among clients can look so different from person to person. Trauma is an autonomous thing. It's an autonomous condition. While someone's trauma might be an occurrence of sexual abuse, another person might have a similar amount of trauma, but because of a time where they were rear-ended in a car accident, no one was injured, the car, minimal damage, but it was still extremely traumatic for that person. So just don't ever, just I guess acknowledge always that trauma is not, it's not your decision to acknowledge if someone has been through trauma or not. It's your client's decision. If they have been through something traumatic, no matter what it is, take it for what it is. Meet them where they're at when you're developing goals. I posted a video on Canvas. It's a TED Talks about adverse childhood experiences. Please give it a watch. It's a little lengthy. It's 16 minutes, but it is good. So give that a look over. 4 R's of trauma-informed care. Give this a read over. I'm running out of time here, but I wanted to include this. Pretty self-explanatory if you look it over there. And that's all I have for you today. I hope that you guys are enjoying your Sunday and have a great week ahead and are staying on track with your assignments. All right, I will talk to you next week.